Music. What's the music?
Bring him home.
All right, everyone. It's Beth Farnham, your Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania's 13th Congressional District. I want to thank you all for coming to this town hall here today. It's a beautiful day outside, so I appreciate you taking the time to spend it a little bit inside or looking at a phone screen. And if you're celebrating, happy Palm Sunday. If you celebrate, happy Passover. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. There's so much to discuss. The music that we heard was Bring Him Home from the musical Les Miserables, and it was sung by John Reason. And I picked that because I often think of the veterans who served and sacrificed for our democracy. So we are here to talk about what's happening with it, how it's affecting our 13th Congressional District, and what we can do to fight the issues. So again, I'm Beth Farnham, and also with us we have Cameron Schroy, and I don't think I have him on my screen here somehow, but Cameron Schroy is my campaign manager. He is also the chair for the Franklin County Democratic Committee. Just really all around great guy. We're really happy to have him on the team. And we work a lot together to keep this campaign. I am refiled, but if you don't know, I did run for U.S. Congress last year. So let me just click on my slideshow here. Our district, if you don't know, consists of over 10 counties. We have Adams, Franklin, Fulton, Bedford, along the Maryland-Pennsylvania line, the Mason-Dixon line. We have Cambria, Blair, Huntingdon, Mifflin, Juniata, Perry, the western edge of Cumberland, which includes Shippensburg, but not Carlisle, as well as a northwestern corner in Somerset. I am coming to you today from Adams County, which is where I live. So just want to let you know a little bit about our district. And it's pretty big. It's one of the I think it's the second largest in terms of geography. Of course, like most congressional districts, it represents about 765,000 people. I believe we're actually over that number. But you know, that's almost 1 million people in our congressional district. And we are number 13. Okay, so when I ran last year, my planks were what they are this year. I'm here to defend and protect our precious democracy. I believe in reproductive freedom, gun safety, public education, universal health care, and immigration reform. Everything I said last year is still true today. And so I'm telling you, in a functioning democracy, our rights to vote and to have our votes be counted are sacred. We have agency over our own bodies. We use, store, and sell guns responsibly. And we believe in quality instruction, public instruction for our children. We believe that our healthcare needs would be covered in a functioning democracy, and that immigrants would have clear paths to citizenship, and they should. My great-grandfather is an example of a person who had a clear path to citizenship through the United States. In fact, the way he got here was not by anyone's term legal at that time. He was 15, stowed away on a ship, and he came to America, lied about his age, picked up arms for the United States of America, fought in World War I, was gassed in France, recuperated in North Carolina. But back then they had the GI Bill, and he was able to use that to attend the Southern School of Pharmacy and he became a pharmacist, and he wound up inspecting alcohol for the state of Maryland. So just by all accounts, a wonderful person who really made his way in America, and he was given that clear path to citizenship, became a productive member of society, and I am here today because of him. So just keep that in mind. You know, we've got so many of us came from people who came from outside of the United States. It's important to understand that we pretty much are a nation of immigrants, except for the first peoples here. And so we need to acknowledge that and not demonize new immigrants. Okay, so last year when I was campaigning, I got to meet a variety of voters and talk to you about these issues. It was also during the time that Vice President Harris was campaigning to be president. So it was just really upbeat and a wonderful year, but of course we know how things ended. So in our 13th congressional district, the overwhelming majority of voters did vote for President Trump and not Vice President Harris. So that's unfortunate. And now we are experiencing sincere fallout from that terrible, terrible decision. I do want to make it clear that when it comes to the United States, the registered voters, a third of us voted, obviously, for Vice President Harris. A few more voted for who is now President Trump, and about a third did not vote at all. So, frankly, not voting at all hurt us terribly. If some of those non-voters could have voted for Vice President Harris to be president, we would not be in this situation. This situation is a constitutional crisis. So we're going to look at some of the things going on here. For example, and you can get to my website, bethfarnhamforcongress.com. So you can read about what I have to say about these issues. About once a month, I put up a longer missive about particular issues. Feel free to go to bethfarnhamforcongress.com. Okay, so what is the state of our nation? The state of our nation is that it's being run. Hold on. Let's listen to the oath of office that the President of the United States does swear. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. But right now we have a person who took that oath and is now running the country as he is a convicted felon. This is almost a mob boss shakedown. It is so blatantly bad. It is so unconstitutional. It's so illegal. I cannot stress enough to you just how unfaithfully he is serving us and the U.S. Constitution. He is betraying the American people. I am going to speak a bit about Trump because I am running for U.S. Congress, and that relates to the checks on his presidency. So important to go over, and we visited this part last time, Trump's constitutional violations. We noted the executive order denying birthright citizenship, which is already guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. His executive order renaming the USDS agency, which was the United States Digital Services Agency, into the Department of Government Efficiency without even congressional approval of that limited reorganizational authority. So there he was, just creating a department they had no authority to create because it was not congressionally approved. And then he used that department for impoundment of congressionally authorized funds. We talked about impoundment. That's basically when the president decides that congressionally approved funds should be used how he thinks, or she would think that they should be used when they have no authority to make these decisions. Now, there's more since the last time we spoke, so I just put it under other issues because it's all very extreme and terrible. War plans being freely discussed through the unapproved Signal chat with unauthorized participants as well as the absence of the U.S. president. Here were war plans, how people were going to be killed in other countries, and the U.S. president was not even there to okay these steps being discussed. And I think they were happening in real time. Moreover, there was someone whom they either didn't know or didn't care was on the chat with him. Luckily, this was a person, Jeff Goldberg, I believe, and he works for The Atlantic, and he was able to tell us that he was able to share this complete chat. At first, he redacted sensitive information, but the Trump administration accused him of lying. So then he unredacted the sensitive information and shared it freely with the American people so that we could know the truth of what happened. But we would not have known that any of this was happening without his having been on that chat to begin with, on the Signal platform, which is not authorized for sensitive government purposes. So just all kinds of risks to our national security. I want to keep that I want you to keep that in mind. Next, on the agenda, nonsensical tariff policies. And we've seen this kind of, they call it a blinking contest, a pissing contest. We have President Trump making tariff policies based on exchanges in terms of trading, and he wants to charge more tariffs against countries who do not import as much from us as we import from them. But he fails to consider, for example, the relevant populations of the countries involved. And this was such an incompetent policy rolled out. They wound up tariffing an island of penguins. So, there's some humor in this, but it's usually related to extreme incompetence. And while we can sort of laugh at the details of it, we can't laugh at severe incompetence that are breaches of national security. So, if you're feeling upset, if you're sort of having that nervous laughter when you experience these news stories, if you're immediately angry, if you're very fearful, all of your feelings are valid. This is gross incompetence from the highest office of our land. We also have suspected insider trading based off these tariff policies because the world economies now seem to be at the mercy of one person, and that would be the President of the United States, who would normally not have this amount of power. But our U.S. Congress, that's the Senate and the House of Representatives, they have been abdicating their power, specifically the Republican majorities of each of these houses. The Democratic members of Congress are resisting these moves. They are speaking out about them. But right now, both the U.S. Representatives and the U.S. Senate are in Republican majority control. And so what's happening is they're deciding not to check these outrageous violations that the Trump administration is conducting. Additionally, the suspected insider trading, Trump has his cronies, and we suspect he's indicating to his cronies, hey, I'm going to say this about tariffs or the economy, and then that's going to drive confidence up or down. And then his cronies trade in the stock market based on their anticipated confidence change in the stock market. So they may be making money not only off of stocks that they feel will increase because of something Trump said, but they also may know to short ahead of time. Meanwhile, many of the 401ks of innocent Americans are just being pummeled by by the stock market changes, and the money that's being made to short the market, for example, I believe eventually affects our 401k. So we experience the short, and they get money off of anticipating the short. Whereas, our 401ks, basically we kind of set it and forget it in a lot of mutual funds. So we are losing money as just regular folks trying to honestly keep our retirements intact while the Trump administration and his cronies play games with it. Next, we have the U.S. Department. This is the U.S. president, and this is this is where it's really changed from last month. The U.S. president has directed the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security to investigate his critics. So there are a few things that are happening. We noticed that immigrant students, for example, the student at Tufts University was yanked off the streets by not clearly identified goons from the Trump administration in some way. And she was put on a plane and she was sent 1,500 miles away, held, she was detained. And all of this, not Retta Miranda, all of this is because a year prior, she had criticized her university for not divesting itself from Israeli investments because she saw that their retaliation to the Hamas attack from October 23 was an overreach. So, it's very complicated and down the rabbit hole, but no one should be detained for having written a piece critical of Trump or a university or a member of the Trump administration. And so right now they're going after immigrants. Their hope is that maybe we don't notice, or maybe we'll swallow their absolute bullshit that there's no jurisdiction for immigrants and that they don't get due process. So when it comes to the due process, we are seeing that slowly eroded. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court, as I understand it, sided with some habeas corpus, but if you are an immigrant detained in a facility, it's going to be really hard to come before the courts and present your case. So just keep in mind, it is slowly being eroded. And they're starting with the immigrants because their claim, and I covered this in my last town hall, their claim is that especially immigrants who are undocumented aren't under the jurisdiction of the United States of America, and therefore not under equal protection of the law, and therefore not under due process. But none of that is correct. The only exceptions to those who aren't under jurisdiction of the United States of America when they're on U.S. soil are pretty much diplomats, as well as foreign sovereigns like King Charles, as well as foreign armies, and we would be fighting them, I'm sure. So their arguments do not hold water. Please don't buy their framing, but we have a lot to go through today. So check out my last town hall, also under the live button on YouTube, under Unite PA 13, if you need to catch up. And also recently, very, very concerning, the Trump administration's disregard of judges' orders. We had the innocent legal immigrant from Maryland on a plane being deported to Gulag in El Salvador on trumped up charges, I think. And it was absolutely wrong. They were absolutely wrong in identifying him as the person. They got the wrong person. And so eventually the judge was able to order that he did not belong on the plane bound for El Salvador. Did the Trump administration turn that plane around to ensure the safety and security of a legal immigrant of the United States? No, they sent him there. So as far as we know, and we're just depending on the word of this crooked Justice Department of this crooked administration, he is alive. But I don't think we're really sure about that. So just a lot of law breaking. And of course, we have his shadow president. Look at him. This guy, Elon Musk, holds a press conference. The president was supposed to speak to the American people. Instead, he sat down at a desk while Elon Musk basically conducted the whole thing. Elon Musk was not confirmed by the U.S. Senate to take on the position he has. And his actions have been absolutely harmful, firing federal workers. It's completely unjustified and illegal. Gutting programs, impounding the congressionally approved funding for 2,600 types of programs, federal programs, maybe even more at this point. So just outlandish, outrageous, harmful activity. And some of you may be feeling it, but maybe we're not all feeling it. So I'm going to get to that in the 13th Congressional District. And I'll put this slideshow up so you can access the links and everything as to where I got my information. Also, by holding this position, we believe that Elon Musk is also lining his pockets. There are all kinds of conflicts of interest surrounding him. Why are his cars, I think, being bought by the U.S. government? Why are his, is why does he have contracts with the U.S. government if he is supposedly an advisor to the president of the United States? And he's head of this agency. He brings in his goons, and they have raided these agencies, these trusted institutions in the United States of America. They have raided them for our personal information, which they say, they copied, but they're not going to send anywhere. But can we really trust this? It is just levels and levels of terrible. Okay, and I went over this with the last town hall. Just some of the agencies they've touched: firing the workers, locking federal workers out of computers, accessing our personal information, lying about transparency, accessing health and human services records, firing workers who are fighting the bird flu. I think they scrambled to get them back. Firing personnel overseeing nuclear arsenal, then they scrambled to get them back. There are just so many incompetencies related to what they're doing. But we can't even go over that right now. So again, check out the last town hall. Okay, so what is happening? How do we know that what the Trump administration is doing is illegal? Well, I've actually found a really great website that aggregates all these lawsuits against the Trump administration for what they're doing. Maybe you heard that, general inspectors were fired. Maybe you heard that the civil rights of some groups were illegally defied. So where are these lawsuits? What are they? And so what I've captured here on 2 slides, frankly, are just the categories of the lawsuits. It's not even one lawsuit per category. It's scads and scads of them. So listen to the different categories. First and foremost, we have immigration and citizenship, because like I said, we are seeing their rights violated. They are immigrants, undocumented or not, are under the U.S. jurisdiction, U.S. jurisdiction, because they are present on U.S. soil, and therefore they are subject to equal protection of the law, and therefore they have the right to due process. So don't let right-wing pundits frame it differently for you. Structure of government personnel. The Doge bros are just firing federal workers left and right. They're gutting our services. That is not how it's done. You can't just fire federal workers. You need to do your due diligence. Perhaps they messed up in some way, but they're not. That's not why they're being fired. It is being sold to not to us who understand what the truth is, but it is being sold to those who listen to the right-wing punditry as some form of curbing waste and abuse. But the waste and abuse that's happening is not through the federal workforce of people who have served our United States government with incredible dedication and fairness and just a patriotism. The fraud and abuse is being perpetrated by the Trump administration itself. We've talked a little bit about the fraud, but there's also abuse. Like, why is Trump playing so much golf, and we're paying all the Secret Service for all his rounds of golf, and every time the workers get scrambled to rehire, it turns out that they have to be back paid for the time that they were not officially working. And then they're told, okay, you're being paid for a 6-week vacation or whatever. There is so much waste that is happening right now. And of course, abuse, any conflicts of interest around the products that Elon Musk and his companies are providing or selling to the United States government. We see lawsuits surrounding government grants, loans, and assistance, and we're going to talk about how that's affecting our Pennsylvania's 13th congressional district. Just so much money being halted, just flat out halted, and sometimes it's not even just the money; it's the fact that some of these services, like through USAID, aren't really so much money, but it's necessary money that impacts people significantly. The aid that we have provided in some of these countries for, to fight starvation and dehydration, the aid that we've provided for for rather little money, it has a significant positive impact on those little countries and prevents them from being vulnerable to some other countries that would seek to overrun them. So, it's not always just about the amount of money, but the impact the money has. Civil liberties and rights, we're seeing transgender students in public schools being denied rights. We're seeing diversity, equity, and inclusion being denied, even though it's lawfully mandated in several areas. We're seeing removal of information from the government websites. This has got to be, at least their lawsuits filed. This got to be a crime. Venerated people who have served in the United States Armed Forces because they were of African American lineage, they are removed, or women, white or black, removed from these government websites as if they didn't contribute. Their contributions were history making. That was why they were on the websites to begin with. What they did was amazing. In fact, the code talkers for World War II used Native American language to help our communications, so that they were much more secreted from our adversaries during World War II. Our enemies could not break that code. And I believe some of that was reinstated, but honestly, that they ever took it away is just incredibly short-sighted, cruel. There's so much cruelty surrounding removal or denial of civil liberties and rights, and denial of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are a nation of immigrants, and that means we're a nation of diversity, and we're a nation of equity and inclusion. That's what democracy is about. So e pluribus unum, we come from all these different places and backgrounds to create this one country, this one democracy where we each have a vote. And so it is not for the Trump administration to take these away. So that's the first slide. Here's the second one. Actions against Department of Justice, FBI employees. They were legitimately doing their job, rounding up January 6th insurrectionists. And so the Trump administration is going after them, as well as former Department of Justice officials, which then speaks to his retaliation against government employees and those who disagreed with his actions. I believe he incited the January 6th insurrection. And so I believe that the January 6th insurrectionists were correctly corralled, and they were given due process, and they were jailed, and yet Trump freed them. And so that's incredibly terrible and harmful for anyone who witnessed against them. And it's also just terrible for our society, because those people should not have gotten away with the crimes that they committed. Next, we've got lawsuits against federalism, transparency, the environment, and trade law. But frankly, it's not enough for me to just go over the two slides. I just want to take a moment here. All right, I'm going to take a moment here and share. I want to just give you an idea of what we're looking at. So I talked about that aggregated list. This is it. It's 188 lawsuits filed against the Trump administration. So much ink is being spilled over his unconstitutional actions, his illegal actions. So I strongly encourage you to go to this website. It's called justsecurity.org, and it has a tracker, litigation, legal challenges, Trump administration. So you'll be able to just see, perhaps there's a particular category of these lawsuits that interests you, like the environment, and you can check this out. This is not your imagination. This administration is breaking so many, many, many laws. And so I want to make sure that you have that. All right, back to our thing. Okay. All right. All right. So how does all this law breaking affect us in Pennsylvania's 13th congressional district? So basically, it just comes from all kinds of places. The Chambersburg Social Security office is slated to close. They've decided to close it. In a broader sense, the Doge Group has already canceled the phone service for the Social Security Administration. So if your 80-year-old grandma needs to get a hold of the Social Security Administration, because of a change, maybe she's now moved into a nursing home, she cannot call them. She has to communicate to them with them through the computer. Well, I don't know about your grandma, but I know my grandma at 80 wasn't that astute with the computer. That is daunting. So basically, that breaks down communication between the recipient of the Social Security and the administration thereof. And frankly, we have to remember that Social Security, it exists because people like her had spent decades putting in their money, as did their spouses, putting in hard-earned money so that they would have some kind of safety net for their retirement, because pensions were de rigueur back then, but then it changed to 401ks for a lot of us now. But if your 401k tanks because, I don't know, you have an incompetent president who calls for tariff policies that just gut the economy, then it's possible you will need to more heavily rely on the Social Security that you put into the system. And yet now people like your grandma who can't call them struggle to communicate with them to let them know about changes so that they can be reassured to receive the Social Security they so rightfully deserve. All right, that's that. Another one is farms. This is interesting. Governor Shapiro's administrator, Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, recently put out a letter identifying the halting of $13 million to the state of Pennsylvania from the United States Department of Agriculture. This is another effect of Doge. And so what it meant was that 190 farms would not receive the money that they were contracted to receive if, when their crops produced an overyield, they donated that overyield to food pantries. So it was kind of a win-win for Pennsylvania, not only for Pennsylvanian farmers, but also hungry Pennsylvanians who needed food stuff from those food pantries. Well, all of a sudden, the USDA just cut off that funding. And so this is not the bread and butter of the farms we're talking about. It averages about $68,000 a farm, which, to most of us sounds like a substantial amount of money. But for a farm, this is not their bread and butter. However, it's something, it can pay towards equipment or whatever they had slated that money to pay. And 25 of those farms are in our 13th congressional district. I looked at that list and looked at the counties they were in, looked at the cities. Like I said, 25 farms. So that was about $1.7 million of revenue that this district those 25 farms will not be getting. And so, interestingly enough, I had actually spent last Tuesday at the Capitol in Harrisburg because ceasefirepa.org, a gun safety group, was having its advocacy day. And I was there to help our state representatives and senators try to understand that they really should vote for House Bill 714 for universal background checks for long guns and private sales to just close that loop. We want our AR-15 sales to be covered through universal background checks in the private sales. So anyway, I went, my particular state representative didn't have time to meet with me. His name is Representative Dan Mao. I also stopped at the offices of State Representative Torrin Ecker, Schmidt, Rigby, Barger, I think a few others. But at one point, there was a state representative who was helping me understand that not too long ago, there were farmers in their office who basically had noted that they weren't getting the 68,000 average from the USDA like they were supposed to get for offset their donations to the food pantries from their crop over yields. And so they were asking the state to make up that shortfall. Now, it's true the governor went out that day and said the state of Pennsylvania stands behind the farmers, but I didn't hear him say something very key, which is we'll make up that shortfall. It just kind of was a generic statement. We stand behind the farmers. So I don't have confidence that the state's going to make up that shortfall. It was not for the Trump administration to impound. It was congressionally approved funding that should have come to our Pennsylvania farmers, and 25 of them in PA 13. So that's just a short example of how we were affected. Another way we're affected is that, currently there are about 10,000 civil federal workers who could lose their jobs. And maybe some of them have. Actually, I thought it was 3, but I'm hearing it was 5 U.S. Park Service Rangers out of the National Military Park of Gettysburg have lost their jobs. Our national parks are such a treasure. And the U.S. Military Park of Gettysburg is not just a peaceful, somber place. It's a place where the tide of the Civil War changed for good, for abolition, for the union of the states. It was a history-making place, and we need our U.S. Park Rangers to guide us through this. One of the things about the U.S. National Military Parks is that you can't use them for really overt recreational purposes, and that's because people died there. U.S. soldiers died there. Yes, Confederate soldiers died there too, but their bodies were left in mass graves for 9 years until they raised enough money to pull them south and reinter them in the Southern Cemetery, in the Hollywood Cemetery in Virginia. They weren't treated with reverence. The U.S. soldiers were reinterred at the National Cemetery in Gettysburg. But the park exists, the battlefield as we know it, exists for us to explore. As tourists, we can be on the trails, we can wander through the fields, not any private property, of course, that's on the battlefield, but we have the right to examine it. But, we can't just fly a kite or have a picnic or something. There's designated areas for picnics. And so the park rangers, one of their jobs is to inform people when they see people doing that stuff. They're there to say, hey, this is a somber place, and we need you to have respect and reverence for who died here. And so we're not going to just, treat it like the beach. We're not going to treat it like Ocean City, Maryland. So just wanted to let you know about that. And that we have over 50,000 50 K through 12 public school districts, which receive federal funding totaling over $100 million. We have 94,000 public school students. Let me get to my next slide. 46% of those 94,000 public school students in PA 13 qualify for the federal lunch program, yet they could lose it. Working families who are already stretched will be forced to do more for their children with, less. We have in our 13th congressional district, over 200,000 married women who could lose the right to vote if our name is different than that on our birth certificate, and I'm one of them. So it is possible that the state of Pennsylvania, should this SAVE Act be passed, the state of Pennsylvania would step in and make sure that people who took a different name that's on their birth certificate could still vote. But it shouldn't be up for consideration. We should have the right to vote. We've already proven that we're U.S. citizens because we were born here. And then when we married, we got a certificate of marriage, and then we used that to receive our name change. For those of us who went through the process through marriage, we use that to initiate the name change with the Social Security Administration. So it is outrageous that any of us have to prove our citizenship or reprove it just to ensure our right to vote. And yes, a passport can be used in this process according to the SAVE Act that has now passed the House, but not yet the Senate. But, not everyone has $165 to buy a passport with. So basically, it's a barrier for, again, a lot of married women who took their husband's last name to vote. So please call your senators and ask them to vote against the SAVE Act that just passed the House. Okay, and of course, we have over 166,000 Medicaid recipients, 224,000 Medicare recipients, 202,000 Social Security recipients, 109,000 SNAP recipients, 12,000 WIC recipients. All of them may be overlapping, and I spelled out per county in the last town hall I did, but all of these recipients could potentially lose their benefits because these benefits are on the chopping block for Doge. So let's revisit that oath of office very quickly. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Our U.S. Representative, John Joyce, took this oath so he took this oath to represent us in the 13th Congressional District. And I have described for you a myriad of ways that this Trump administration is just violating the Constitution, the law, his oath to office, and betraying the American people. John Joyce has an obligation through his oath to uphold, support, defend the U.S. Constitution. In light of Trump's violations, that's exactly what he should be calling out. And so many of us have written to him or called him or asked. We've sent emails, carefully worded emails, enunciating our serious situations. We've called with pleading voices, please do something. We've written letters, heartfelt letters about our pain over what these cuts could mean or do mean. And we've requested town halls to discuss Trump, Musk, all of these. When I talk about these letters, emails, and calls, I'm talking about people bringing up the issues that have arisen since the Trump administration was sworn in. And what have they gotten in return? Nothing. I have asked all around the district, what answer did you get about your Social Security being at risk? What answer did you get about Trump's last executive order? What answer did you get about the possible dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education? Nothing. People simply get an acknowledgement that they reached out to them. When people call, the staff on the phone, as I understand, just says, yes, we will take that to our congressman. And then the constituent never hears back. He is not engaging with us over these issues. He might send out his newsletter every Sunday. I've stopped receiving it. I choose not to receive it. He's not engaging with his people. And frankly, he doesn't deserve the title U.S. representative. He's not representing us. And there are more and more people, even if they voted for him, who are experiencing these terrible situations, and he is not answering. He's so bad about engaging with the constituency, even his signage is not to be found. Here in Adams County, he has an office, not in our county seat where you would expect it. That's Gettysburg. He put his office right in the same building with the state representative, Torren Ecker, who represents the 193rd district, I believe. And that's basically the upper half of Adams County. And if you look at the signage, you see Torren Ecker, Representative Ecker's sign, it's there. He's there to be found by his people. But our U.S. representative in his 4th term has this little metal sign. And the biggest letters you see are John Joyce, MD. If you're driving by, the best you might pick up is, hey, there's a doctor there. Doctor of dermatology, whose bedside manner I've heard criticized everywhere I've gone. Anyway, he doesn't want to be found. So do we really want him representing us? And I say no. And that's why I'm running. I would much rather represent us. I would be out there with real signage, with real letters to the constituents on my positions on the issues. But I can barely assert any of that because I've just described a whole host of illegality from the Trump administration that he is silent about, John Joyce is silent about. So right now, I really have to tell you, hey, vote me into Congress, and I'm there to fix what's broken. I have to reestablish things that are far from normal, that are hurting people. So that's where we are. But I have some good news. PA 13, you are standing up and showing up, and you are resisting. And I could not be more thrilled to be among you, proud of you. This has been such an amazing time for Pennsylvania's 13th Congressional District. You have really come out and you've made yourselves visible. You have done what John Joyce can't even dream of. You were out there on the street corners denouncing Trump, denouncing Musk, and frankly, John Joyce's silence. You've done it in Adams County on April 5th, Gettysburg. You brought together over 500 people. I think it was even closer to 600. In Mifflin County, no matter how few people you are out there. Thank you. Thank you, Lewistown. In Cumberland County, this part was not in our district. It was in Mechanicsburg, and it was organized by the PA 10th network. But what they did was organize a demonstration in front of the Tesla dealership in Mechanicsburg. Thank you. And so many of us in the 13th Congressional District, especially from Shippensburg and Points West, we were able to be a part of that and denounce Trump and Musk. And then in Franklin County, you have just been knocking yourselves out. You know, it's not just Chambersburg, it's Montalto, it's Waynesboro. You are, and you're demonstrating not only on April 5th rally day, not only in the square, but also against John Joyce's office in Chambersburg. Thank you. Thank you for making your voices heard. In Cambria County, you gathered at that park there. I've been there. There's a gazebo, and we've got rallies lined up on the 17th and the 19th. And so I'm going to be there in Ebensburg, addressing the crowd. And there, Adams County, we're working on a town hall together, and we've invited our legislators to come and answer our questions and address our concerns. Town halls, I know you're working on them in some other parts of the district. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep resisting. But I want to bring your attention today to a video of the resistance in Pennsylvania's 13th Congressional District. It is just it encapsulates so well who we are. And this came out of Blair County on April 5th in Altoona. And I had the honor of speaking at that rally as well. It wasn't just a rally at Heritage Plaza, though. It was a march around the town. And we were also 500 people. That's amazing. If you know Blair County, it's even redder than Adams County. Everywhere I go, people tell me how conservative it is. But for over 500 people to show up in Altoona, Pennsylvania, I want you to watch this video. I think it's really special, and I hope you get out of it what I did. So please bear with me, please, while I shift this over here. Sorry, I didn't have the sound. Here we go.
Right here, right now, we are gathered at a critical moment in our nation's history.
Because every year is an election year here, and every year is a chance to say, this is what we want, this is what our values are, and this is who should be representing us.
What will happen when your children are not receiving the education and the opportunities that they are entitled to by law? Our democracy is something I think all of us, to some extent, have taken for granted.
Understanding that there are times when every man has to work the literal or metaphorical sleeves and stand up for himself, his loved ones, and his beliefs. That time is now.
In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the personal liberty, for ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. That's right.
Okay, so I want to thank Devin Saylor, who put together that video. And I also want to thank Indivisible Blair County, who had organized that event along with the Blair County chapter of the NAACP and the Juniata chapter of the National Audubon Society. So let's go back to our district here. So feel free to link again to that. It really shows who we are as a district and what we're capable of. And you heard us recite the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. And let me tell you, when we speak with one voice, we deliver powerful messages. And so I'm inviting you to deliver one unifying message from PA 13. You've seen the trampling of our U.S. Constitution. You work in fear of your cost of living rising substantially. You worry about the jobs of your loved ones, yourself. You worry about the civil rights of yourself, your loved ones, your community. We're at the point where, you've delivered so many heartfelt messages and they have fallen on deaf ears. So I am suggesting we demand one thing now. There's nothing else to demand. And this comes to us from the revolutionary founders. It is our nonviolent means of solving this nightmare. It is through impeachment. And they told us the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Now we know who we're dealing with. We're dealing with John Joyce, a bootlicker, a Trumpian bootlicker. So that's why I'm saying, if you've already delivered your heartfelt messages, don't keep delivering them. Just tell him this: impeach Trump or resign. When enough of us deliver this one message, we will get through. Remember, this guy hides. He does not want you to find him. He does not want you to deliver one message as if we're organized and knowledgeable about our own power, but our power is greater than their crimes and greater than the U.S. House of Representatives and Congress's inaction. We can do great things when we act together. This is the message that I believe we need to deliver from Pennsylvania's 13th Congressional District. And I'm going to deliver this message again and again wherever I go. So if you can, please help my campaign to deliver this message. If you liked what I said here, please donate. I'll have more town halls. But now we've reached the point where you get to speak. And so I would like very much for you to submit your questions or concerns in the comments. And that way Cameron can provide them, and hopefully I can answer them. So feel free to deliver your messages or ask your questions. I am here to answer them. Some in the industry would say that's dead air, Beth. All right. Well, I'm not getting any questions, so I think I'll just double checking. I'll beg off. Okay. So thank you all for attending this town hall. I hope you got some information you needed, maybe information you didn't need. Please let me know if there's anything that you're looking for from my campaign. You will see more and more of me throughout the campaign, throughout the year. If John Joyce were to resign, we would have a special election. And in that case, I could be voted in. So just keep that in mind. Keep hope alive. Thank you again for being here. And I hope you have an excellent, excellent day. And don't forget, choose democracy.